Hey, welcome to the fourth episode of the Ohio Valley Sports Blog Podcast. I'm BJ Anderson.
I'm Cody Anderson.
I'm Ian.
All right, let's delve into the MLB playoffs. Big game 3 tonight. Boston took it 1-0 against Detroit. What do you see tonight?
I saw finally some hits out of Boston. I finally saw some offense, a little bit better pitching performance than what we've been used to. Not that the first two had been bad pitching performances, but you give up runs in critical situations and you don't win that much. Finally, an offensive showing. It was only one run. One run was all they needed tonight. They got hits. They got base runners. They were able to get into some situations, and they got to the bullpen when they needed to, and didn't allow Detroit to really control the pace of the game, the style of the game. All in all, it was a big win for Boston. They came off a big win Sunday night. Had to capitalize on that momentum, and they did. And you can't ask for much more from that team. Detroit. Now you start to get into the back half of the rotation. You don't know how well that's going to hold up. I mean, Detroit's pitching has been real solid throughout these first three games and throughout the playoffs, really. But now you get into the back half, you don't know how much is there, and you really don't want to put your bullpen out there in the situation after Sunday night. You saw what happened. I think Detroit next game is certainly a must-win for Detroit. You got to get a split at home. You got to get this series back to Boston in good shape.
Yeah, I mean, I think the difference in this series is going to be Detroit's bullpen. For as long as they've been contenders going back to the '06 World Series, they've never really had a solid bullpen, and that's always been their Achilles heel. It didn't really show tonight. I mean, they pitched some scoreless innings, but I think in the long run that'll be their downfall once again.
Yeah, and you really saw a classic pitcher's duel tonight. I mean, you really can't fault Verlander for what he did. He pitched really well. Lackey was just a little bit better than what he was tonight. And what kind of scares me though is if I'm Boston, I'm really fortunate not to be down 3-0 at this point. I mean, it took a grand slam from David Ortiz last game to win it, and it took a really, really good pitching performance from John Lackey. Not taking anything away from the Red Sox here, but they are really fortunate they don't find themselves down 3-0. But, I mean, that's baseball, so it should be interesting to go on to Game 4 to see how that plays out.
And then LCS, you have the Cardinals up 2-1. The Dodgers saving their season basically with the win last night. You don't want to be down 3-0. I mean, one time in baseball history has that happened.
I know a little bit about that.
But, yeah, it was a good win for them. You got a really solid pitching performance out of Ryu. I mean, you really think of Kershaw and Greinke as the guys. So, I mean, you have Ryu go out there and pitch 7 scoreless innings. That's big for them. The game's in progress right now, so can't really comment on tonight's game. But, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if LA can tie this at home before it goes back to St. Louis.
Yeah, and if I'm a Dodgers fan, I was worried before the game the other night. I mean, they threw their best 2 pitchers, and they found themselves down 2-0.
And then going against Adam Wainwright
right,
in Game 3.
Right. So I mean, they really stepped it up on both offense and defensively. And I thought that was interesting play of the game was Yasiel Puig's bat flip on the non-home run. I mean, a lot of people are taking some offense to it, saying you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't try to show off a pitcher. But I kind of liked it. He was showing raw emotion. He's never been. I mean, obviously he's a rookie. He's never been in the postseason before.
Yep.
He's playing some meaningful baseball. He was trying to spark the team, and I think it worked. I mean, though it would have been interesting to see had he not done the backflip and started jogging, he probably might have gotten inside the park home run on it. So
I mean, I just don't understand what baseball's problem is with celebrating. I mean, football, I mean, every time you get 10 yards, you celebrate. I mean, Antonio Brown, he catches the ball. Oh, first down. But I mean, in baseball, it's like if you celebrate anything except a walk-off or a no-hitter or a playoff win, then you're a jerk and everyone should beam you with the baseball. Baseball just really needs to progress with the times. It's not 1900 anymore. It's not people with suits and ties sneaking out on a business lunch to watch the game. It's 2013. They need to make the game more exciting, and I like Yasiel Puig. Like you said, I mean, that's raw emotion, and it's not something you see a lot in baseball.
I like Puig for the same reasons that I like Johnny Manziel, because he's an emotional player. He plays with his heart on his sleeve. He goes out there. He believes and probably for the better part knows that he is better than you, and he backs it up. I love what he brings because this is the playoffs. This is time to let emotion show. This is time to get fired up, and that's what he did. He made a big play. He got out of a slump in a big way. He made a huge play in a game, and he was excited about it. And his team was excited about it. And it made the game a lot more interesting. And I've been watching Dodger games now quite more frequently just to watch what this guy's going to do next. Because he's really that dynamic of a player.
Do you think say it was a small market team, say he was making the rookies minimum, he was a player just called up from AAA, he didn't get that big deal just to sign with the Dodgers to have the negotiating rights. Say he was a guy making the minimum and he just came up and he like hit a home run or a triple. Would people have such a problem with it then, or is it like a repeat offender kind of thing with Yasiel Puig?
I just think he gets a bad rap because he is a superstar, and every little move he does is so documented, and they talk about it on SportsCenter all the time. They bring an analyst to break down what he does. Though I think baseball and ESPN, I think they would still make a big deal whether it was a nobody. I think what the angle would be though is that it would be, who is this guy coming up out of nowhere, hitting one home run in one postseason game, have the right to celebrate. Mm-hmm. So,
but the thing is, Puig's done this for the better part of the half of the season that he's been up there. I mean, he bursts onto the scene, throws a guy out from right field on a triple with no bounce on the ball, bursts onto the scene with that play, and from there he just hasn't come down. Really, he's been a superstar in this league since he showed up in the league earlier this year. And he's one of the most exciting players to watch. I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch this guy's career blossom, not just in the rest of the series, but 5, 10 years down the road. You're looking at a superstar in the making right now. And I think it's fun to watch. It's exciting to watch. And it's something we haven't gotten to see in baseball in a long, long time, with a guy that has this much hype surrounding him who lives up to that hype. And in some instances even exceeds it.
Let's move on to college football. Coming off a bye week, Ohio State's playing Iowa at home. It's the first matchup in a couple years with the Big Ten expansion. Iowa's 4-2 on the year. They've shown some things, but it just doesn't look like they're going to have the talent to compete with Ohio State. What do you expect to see Saturday?
I expect to see a good game on both sides. I don't think Iowa's talent level really matches up with Ohio State, but that doesn't mean they're not going to show up Saturday waiting to play. When you're ranked in that top 10 and you got big bullseyes on your back, everybody wants to knock you off. So I mean, there's always a shot. But I think Ohio State's going to come out and they're going to execute their offense and their game plan. And I think Urban Meyer's going to have them coached up and ready to go. So there's not that big letdown.
I think it's going to be a good physical game as well. I think it might be a lot more low scoring than people might think it will be, but I expect it to be a really good game because I think Ohio State and Iowa, I mean, they've kind of had this budding little animosity towards each other for the better part of their games. They always seem to play each other real well, and I think it's going to be one of those games where, like you said, Ohio State's got the target on their back. Everybody's going to be gunning for them now, and I think Iowa's going to come out. And don't be surprised if Iowa has a lead at some point in this game. I think it's going to be a pretty low-scoring game, but I expect Ohio State to win this game. I expect Ohio State to handle its business, but I think it might be a tighter game than a lot of people think it's going to be because Iowa is a very talented, very well-coached football team. Just the talent level isn't quite at the level of Ohio State's yet. Kirk Ferentz he's going to manage that team well enough to get them ready to play this game. And I just think at the end of the day, Ohio State just has more playmakers.
Yeah, it'll be real interesting to see Braxton Miller, of course, like always. Urban Meyer had some really interesting comments today in his press conference. He said that Miller really showed a lot last week in the Northwestern game, or a couple weeks ago. Said that that's what leaders are made of. That the way that Miller played in the fourth quarter, that's what leaders do. That's what superstars do in college football.
Yeah, I think he's right. Miller really did step up in that last quarter. Really, mainly the second half of that Northwestern game when they were down, they were trailing. And he did. He didn't quit on himself. He didn't quit on his teammates, and they got the victory. I'm looking for Carlos Hyde to have another big game this week. He's had a good first couple of weeks coming back from his suspension, but last week he just really took off, and it really reminded you of the Carlos Hyde you saw last season, just running people over, making good cuts. I think he's going to have a good game.
You can point back to the Michigan game last year and the Northwestern game this year, and he is the reason they won those games. Or a couple weeks ago, 150 plus yards, 3 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. Michigan game, just dominated. He's that guy that adds that element to the offense that they didn't really have at the beginning of the year. Not that it mattered when they were playing Cupcake State, and then they had Souffle State, I think.
I think so.
Let's move on to a Big 12 matchup. Texas Tech, undefeated Texas Tech, going into Morgantown to take on the Mountaineers. Any hope for the blue and gold this week?
The last time an undefeated team went into West Virginia, they weren't undefeated, but they weren't Texas Tech. I don't expect West Virginia to win this game. I really don't. They're just not that good. They're not. They're really not that good. And Texas Tech is that good. And that's the problem. It's just there's very limited, I think, top to bottom talent on this West Virginia roster, especially on the defensive side of the ball. There's no hope that West Virginia's defense is slowing down that Texas Tech offense. There's absolutely no chance of that happening. And I think there's not a very good possibility that West Virginia's offense is going to be able to keep pace with it. So I don't expect West Virginia to win. I don't expect West Virginia to really be in this game at any point.
Yeah, Texas Tech's a really interesting team. They really peaked with Mike Leach, and then there was a whole controversy with Craig James, and he locked me in a closet. No, he did. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. Whatever. But they were undefeated towards the end of that year, and really were national title contenders. Now Cliff Kingsbury, their former quarterback, now at head coach, is really bringing them back to prominence. Do you expect anything out of the Mountaineers this week, Cody, or just another week for another WVU loss?
Well, it's interesting. If you go back to their schedule and the way they've been playing, West Virginia's been playing, they usually win one week, lose the next week. Win, lose. So, they're scheduled technically to win this week.
Does the bye week factor into that? Did they skip the week?
I don't know.
Maybe it was just a win for them on their bye week that they didn't lose.
Well, my point being, we can't sit here and talk about West Virginia and act like we know what's going to happen from them. They got blown out against Baylor and Maryland, but yet they kept it close against Oklahoma, and then they beat Oregon State.
Oklahoma State,
I'm sorry. Yeah. So I don't expect much from the Mountaineers, but I'll say I wouldn't be surprised if they somehow won this game.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Let's move on to another Ohio school. 2 Ohio schools, Miami of Ohio, at Ohio this week for the big rivalry. Coming off a really disappointing loss to Central Michigan, Bobcats bounce back this week?
I think the Bobcats do bounce back this week. Miami is not a very good team. They're in a lot of turmoil right now, firing their head coach halfway through the season. It's been a train wreck of a season over there in Oxford. Oxford itself is kind of a train wreck, but I expect Ohio to come out and really just control this game from the start. They have had this game circled for a long time, all year since last year. Ohio went into the game in Oxford last year, ranked 24th in the country. Lost on a boneheaded play on the final play of the game. Took a sack with no timeouts left. Lost. To have this game circled. It's a rivalry game. It's going to be physical. It's going to be hard hitting. it's going to be tough, but I expect Ohio to come out and really control this game and walk away with a big win.
Yeah, I mean, just the hatred between these two schools. I mean, Miami, no offense to any Miami grads or alum or anything, they just have that arrogance to them that Ohio just really can't stand. I mean, they just want to take it out on the football field. And I expect it this week. Ohio's too good of a team to have two bad losses in a row, especially in MAC play. I mean, they know they need to bounce back. Most likely win out, have a chance at the MAC championship game, and see where it goes from there.
Yeah, and if you're Ohio, you have to win the turnover battle. Last week against Central Michigan, they had 4 turnovers, including 2 interceptions, and you just can't have that. Not in MAC play. I mean, nobody expected them to win the opening game this year, but a lot of people thought they would pretty much win out after that or come close to it. And another big concern was not so much the offense. Yeah, they had a couple turnovers, but I mean, the defense allowed over 200 yards of rushing on the ground, and that's just not a good sign.
No.
I mean, whether it be poor tackling or just not being physical enough. I mean, everybody knows when you come to conference games, it's just different. They're more physical and they're going to be more demanding. So they're really maybe this loss was a good sign for them. They kind of woke up a little bit. Maybe they came off of their high horse. They're not. So maybe I hope they do. I think they will bounce back this week against a not very good Ohio team. But they just got to be on. They got to have their head on a swivel and know that any team can beat them at any moment. And that's what makes college football so great.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Ohio, you've really got to win out at this point because you know Bowling Green is going to be a real tough team to beat. You know Kent State's going to play you tough. You know you're going to get good games down the rest of the stretch. You've got to be on your A game. You've got to bring your best every week because as proved last week, when you're not ready to play, you will get beat. It's that simple.
Let's move on to a big matchup out on the West Coast. Undefeated 9th-ranked UCLA going into Stanford, coming off a really, really surprising loss to Utah. Stanford, since the David Shaw and Jim Harbaugh era, I mean, they've beaten teams they should beat, and most of their losses have come against Oregon or in a BCS bowl game, teams that maybe they shouldn't beat, but they've always kept it close. I mean, that's really one of the most shocking losses since David Shaw and his predecessor Harbaugh was there. Do you think they'll bounce back this week and beat a really talented UCLA team?
I don't know because this UCLA team is really, really good, and Jim Mora has done a really impressive job with that team. He's really recruited well, used the LA thing to his advantage, and he's got that team fired up, and he's got them firing on all cylinders. I expect it to be a real, real good game. I'm excited about this game. I think it'll be a fun game to watch, and it's really too tough to call for me. Just these two teams are so talented, so good, so well coached that it's really a toss-up. I think this could end up being one of those who has the ball last kind of games might win it. It's gonna be a fun football game Saturday night.
Yeah, really. I think I expect UCLA to come out and really this be their signature win in the Jim Mora era. They had some nice victories last year, and he's definitely turned it around. That'll be tough for Stanford. 2 straight losses.
Yeah.
They'll really have to play well the rest of the season if they have a shot at the Pac-12 championship. And I think what you're seeing is what you see in the SEC a lot of times. It's all these teams are starting to beat up on each other, and it paves the way for some of these other schools in weaker conferences or not as strong conferences to walk into the national title game or even a BCS game. Because I expect Stanford to give Oregon a run for their money when they play. So, I mean, you just have a lot of talented teams out there, and it should be a good game to watch. I agree with you, and I think whoever has the ball last is probably going to win this game.
Yeah, it's really a must-win for Stanford. I mean, 2 conference losses, you're most likely not going to bounce back from that.
Because you know Oregon's not going to lose twice.
Oregon's not going to lose twice, and I mean, if UCLA beats Stanford, I mean, the only team they should lose to is Oregon. I mean,
they won't even play in the regular season.
They don't.
because they're in two separate divisions. They won't play each other until the Pac-12 title game.
Just
so,
doing what they do
so-
out there.
but
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where I'm going with this. That's a must-win for Stanford. They really need to buckle down this week.
and let's take nothing away from Utah because Utah's a really good football team. I mean,
They've been on the scene the
they've
last
been on
couple
the
of years.
yeah. I mean, they're a good football team, and they were ready to play on last Saturday, and they took it to Stanford and outplayed them. And Stanford, maybe they needed that. Maybe it's time to wake up. I mean, time to get going because Stanford didn't really look that impressive against Washington. I mean, they played well enough to win that game, but nothing impressive really.
And they really didn't put up enough points against Utah. If they don't score any points, they're not going to beat this UCLA team because that's a really talented offense.
Really, really good offensive team.
Let's move on to the next matchup here. Probably the biggest matchup I'd probably say since A&M and Alabama, and that's undefeated Florida State going to undefeated Clemson. A matchup of top 5 teams. What are you expecting out of this, BJ?
Really, really great quarterback play. I mean, two of the best quarterbacks in the country, Taj Boyd and Jameis Winston. Winston has impressed since he burst onto the scene against Pitt this year. I mean, you had all the hype surrounding him, famous Jameis, and he lived up to it. I mean, not a lot of people do. A lot of people get all hyped up. He's going to be the savior of this program, and then he's like the last 10 quarterbacks that were there.
Yeah. First round draft picks and all, they suck.
No, Christian Ponder sucks.
What about you?
First round draft pick or not, Christian Ponder sucks. But I expect a really high scoring matchup. I mean, their defenses are good, but I just really expect the offense to take a stranglehold on this game. It'll be one of those games where whoever has the ball last, whoever has their quarterback taking them down the field, is probably going to win.
I don't know. I like Florida State in this game. I'm just gonna go out and say it. I like Florida State in this game, and I like Florida State to run the table, and I like Florida State to maybe be playing in a national title game at the end of the year. I think this is a really, really talented, really, really good football team that is riding high right now, and I think this will be the signature win for this team. This is going to be the win that they are going to hang their hat on when it comes to the end of the season and it's time to start deciding who plays where at the end of the year. This is going to be the win that voters are going to look at when they're trying to decide who plays in that national title game. I like Florida State in this game, and if I had to make a prediction, I'm going to say it's going to be 35-25.
So, not that it'd be this game, so you expect Florida State to win this game and not have their big letdown game that they have almost every single year?
No.
This is the year it's over?
I think this is the year that Jimbo Fisher and, like you said, the quarterback Jameis Winston, I don't think this team is going to have that letdown. I really don't think so.
See, I think the difference in this game is going to be not that I don't think Jameis Winston has been anything short of amazing this year, but he's still only a freshman.
Yeah.
Not that they can't play or anything,
Yeah.
but I think the difference in this game is going to be, can Taj Boyd step up and use his senior leadership and have an advantage over, because he's been here before in some big games. He's got the experience. So, this is Florida State's first true matchup of the year. They beat Maryland. They crushed Maryland, but how good was Maryland?
Yeah.
Clemson had that big win to start the year.
Mm-hmm.
So, they've been here before. So let's see if the experience plays a part in this one.
Going again to the Winston freshman thing, I'm going to be the big thing that I think is going to be interesting to see is how is he going to handle that crowd?
Yes.
That very, very loud, very, very hostile
Noxious,
crowd
yes.
at Clemson, and they're going to be giving him hell the whole game. So I'm interested to see how much poise he has, because it's going to be near impossible to hear him in that huddle. It's going to be near impossible to hear him at the line of scrimmage if he's trying to make a check or a change. It's going to be interesting to see how he handles that. I think he handles it well, and I think Florida State comes out on top on this one. But if Clemson wins it, I won't be stunned. It's going to be a real fun game.
Well, building on what Cody said about Florida State's disappointing loss, I mean, Clemson is just as guilty of that. I mean, these are two programs in the past couple of years that you've gone, oh, this is the year. This is the year that Florida State's going to run the table. This is the year that Clemson's going to run the table. Taj Boyd and Sammy Watkins, and they're going to run the table. And then they have a horrible loss against NC State or Florida, both of them. So, I mean, it'll be interesting, but I think that I like Clemson in this game. I think that Taj Boyd, I think he's gonna finally lead them to a really big win this week.
Yeah, I don't even know if I want to say my heart's telling me Clemson just because I like Boyd and I really think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But I mean, when you put up 63 points on a ranked team, whether it's 25 or not, that's impressive. So I mean, I'll definitely be watching Saturday night to see what happens.
It'll be fun.
All right, let's move on to the NFL. Matchup at Lambeau this week. The Browns coming off a loss. Really disappointing loss against the Lions. I mean, it was a back and forth game. They ended up on the short end. Going into Lambeau, Packers coming off a big win against the Ravens. What do you expect this week from the Browns?
Are they back in? And not in a good way?
I'm kind of scared to admit that might be true. I have been saying this for a long time. I got to see him play in person at the beginning of the year, and I'll say it again. Brandon Weeden is the worst quarterback I've ever seen play.
Have you seen Blaine Gabbert?
I have not seen Blaine Gabbert in person.
Oh, okay. You're talking about in person.
Right,
okay.
In person, Brandon Weeden is the worst quarterback I've ever seen play. He's indecisive. He's nervous. He makes stupid decisions. He's antsy in the pocket. He holds onto the ball way too long. Just about everything that you can do wrong as a quarterback, he does about 20 to 25 times a game. And it costs them games. And it cost them the game Sunday. I don't understand the logic in a shovel pass to a fullback that's covered 5 yards down the field when you need 10 anyways, and then you're running out of the pocket and you do a shovel pass and you get intercepted because you make as you said it yourself, a boneheaded play. And then to add injury to insult, nobody's taking accountability for this loss at all. No accountability from anyone in that locker room, anyone on that coaching staff, none. Nobody's been held accountable for this. If you're going to be a franchise that you want to be near the top of the division and you want to be considered a threat in this league, you got to have accountability. You got to step up to the plate when you get beat, and you need to hang your hat on that, admit that you were wrong, and move on. And I have not heard anybody do that.
So do you expect Jason Campbell to get some, not maybe start the game, but you think you will see him at all against the Packers or in the next coming weeks?
No, I don't.
Would you? How about this? Would you want to see Jason Campbell instead of Brandon Weeden?
I'd want to see you instead of Brandon Weeden at this point.
Well, I did. I was a pretty good 7th grade quarterback.
I'd rather see you at this point than him.
Because a lot of people don't like Jason Campbell, but I mean, he's been around long enough. He could throw the football. He did all right in Washington. It wasn't great, but I'd say definitely an upgrade over Brandon Weeden. And you're right, Ian. When you see the Steelers lose, or you see the Patriots lose, or even the Broncos, most of the time the quarterbacks with Roethlisberger, Brady, Manning, that was on me. I didn't play well enough to. And actually, with all those teams, you see the head coach. I didn't have my players ready.
Yep.
Maybe even some of our leader on the defense. We didn't make the plays, and that's really what it was. They had everything going their way that game.
Yeah.
And then they just had no answer on defense.
In their 3 losses this year, the Cleveland Browns have been outscored in the second half by a combined 53-3.
I mean,
you're not going to win a lot of games that way.
No, you will not. And where is the accountability for that? You have to come out of the locker room in the second half, and you've got to be ready to play.
Brandon Whedon, when Hoyer went down, the Browns season went down with them. I mean, for whatever reason, the coaching staff does not like Jason Campbell. I mean, that was evidenced by them skipping right over him to start Brian Hoyer. I mean, who panned out? I mean, he did really well in his couple of games that he did play. But I mean, it's really interesting to me that Thad Lewis, a rookie who was with the Browns last year, now in his second year with the Bills, he went out and he did really, really well for the Bills last week. And the Browns are still going with Brandon Whedon.
Yeah,
he has proven time and time again he could not lead this team. The team has the talent around him. I mean, they have a really good defense. They have a really good wide receiving core. A decent run game. It's nothing to scoff at, but it's not going to go out there and run for 300 yards. But a decent run game, and then you have Brandon Whedon. And it's not a lot of times in a team sport you can single one person, but this is that time.
Well, I mean, I'm going to go beyond Brandon a little bit because, let's be honest, Joe Hayden didn't have his best game. Defense in general didn't really have their best game on Sunday. Joe Hayden, I remember early in the game, had 2 pass interference calls on back-to-back plays that basically gifted Detroit a touchdown in the early stages of that game. It's plays like that are going to cost teams games. You know, you cannot make the same mistakes over and over and over again. Brandon Whedon has made the same mistakes over and over and over and over again for his entire career. That's a problem. And it's obvious to anybody, and I'm sure it's just as obvious to the two of you as it is to me, Brandon Whedon's not starting next year for this team.
No.
He's not. There's no way that he's starting next year for this team. And I think there's a very realistic chance that he's not on the roster next year.
I don't expect him to do that.
So, basically, we're back at square one. Let's just back at square one. This, I'm sorry, Mom. This shit is getting old real fast. Let's find a guy who can lead this team. Let's get a guy in there who can lead this team, who can be a starting quarterback, who can play at a high level. Let's get some consistency at that position. But let's start there and build around it. You've got a good defense. You've got a good receiving core. You've got a good offensive line. You've got a decent enough running game that it'll keep a defense honest. Let's get somebody at the quarterback position who can be consistent enough to win you games. He doesn't have to be the next Tom Brady. He doesn't have to be the next Peyton Manning. Just somebody who you can hang your hat on and get you to win games.
Ian, I know where you're going with this. You want the Cleveland Browns to sign Tim Tebow. Wait, hold on. Would you take Tim Tebow over Brandon Whedon right now?
I would take you over Brandon.
I'm just saying, Tim. You know, you guys know I love Tim Tebow. Guy won a playoff game and can't get a job in the NFL.
But it is weird though because I mean it's consensus around the football community that Brandon Whedon won't be starting for them next year, and most likely is going to be cut or traded. But they're going with him. I mean, and they were in first place. So why, if you're not giving up on this season, and you shouldn't, you have the talent. Why are you running him out there game after game just to watch him make the same mistakes? I don't understand.
And I think, Ian, you and the rest of the Cleveland Brown Nation can rest easy because I do think they're going to take a quarterback next year with the first pick. And there's a lot of good, talented quarterbacks coming out this year. So I think you're going to be all right.
If you had the number 1 overall pick, which quarterback would you take coming out in this class?
If I had the number 1 pick,
assuming everybody comes out that
everyone who's
I've said this since the beginning of the year. I want Johnny Manziel. I want Johnny Manziel. Not because of what he does on the field, but because the guy wins. He wins football
Tim
games.
Tebow argument.
Tim Tebow
He,
wins games.
he wins football games.
Tim Tebow wins football games.
Here's to you, Skip Bayless.
But I want to bring up one real quick point before we move on. I think the Lions, the entire coaching staff, just completely outcoached the Browns.
Oh, yeah.
They made no adjustments, and what I mean, what really sealed the deal was when the Lions had the ball. It was third down. There was less than 2 minutes to go, and instead of running the ball and just settling for the field goal, they went for the kill, got the touchdown, and just shut the door completely.
Yep.
And when Cleveland was up early, I believe they were up 10 at some point.
Yeah.
They just
There was no
nothing,
killer instinct.
no killer instinct, and sometimes that has to fall on the coaching staff for getting the Jim Tressel effect.
Yeah.
So let's move on. A big AFC North matchup is the Baltimore Ravens coming into Heinz Field to take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers came off, I don't know if I want to call it an impressive win because it was the Jets, but they did look a heck of a lot better coming out of their bye week.
Yeah.
Granted, it was still, they were a 3-2 Jets team. But, they had sacks.
Yeah.
They had a couple turnovers.
They didn't turn the ball over.
And they didn't turn the ball over. And I'm not ready to say the ship is fixed and they're heading in the right direction, but it was encouraging.
Yeah.
This was an absolutely, 2% of the teams make the playoffs at 0-4?
Yeah.
I'll venture to say probably 0% at 0-5. So this was an absolute must-win, and they took care of business.
Yeah, it's really simple with the Steelers team. They have the talent. Minus a couple key receivers in Hines Ward and Mike Wallace. This is a team that went to a Super Bowl a couple years ago, and a couple changes on defense too. It's really simple with them. They have to win the turnover battle. 0-4 in those 4 games, 0 turnovers, careless with the ball, giving the other teams points and not stepping up and making a play themselves. This week, albeit a rookie quarterback, 2 interceptions, and then they took care of the ball against a really good Jets defense. They ran well. They threw well when they had to. It wasn't a great offensive showing. When you settle for 4 field goals, it's not your best day at the office. But, a 50-yard pass play, it's not something we've seen this year. So it was a really encouraging win for me. But reality is you're still 1-4. And every game from this point out, for the most part, is a must-win if you want to consider yourself a contender.
Yeah, it was a step in the right direction for this team. It's not the full-on fix yet. There's a lot of things that still need to be improved. But the general formula for winning football is protect the football and take the football away from the other team. And when you do that, you usually win, and that's what the Steelers did. It doesn't get much simpler than that. Now you come into this one, and you got to get ready for it because I know, and it's going to be physical. It's going to be hard-hitting. These are 2 teams that absolutely 110% hate each other. And hate is the nicest word I can use to describe the feeling between these 2 teams because it is downright just awful hatred. And it's going to be physical, hard-hitting football. I'm interested to see if the Steelers are going to be able to play, if this win gives them any momentum. Are they going to carry this into next week? The Ravens played really, really well last week. They were just 2 points worse than Green Bay. They're a couple plays away from winning that football game. When you really think about it, they're 1 or 2 plays away from winning that football game, and that's turnovers. So, is the Steelers defense going to be able to get turnovers? Or is the Steelers offense going to be able to not commit turnovers? again, it doesn't get much simpler than that. This team has the talent to win. It's just protecting the football. It gets as simple as that.
Yeah, and I'm still not sold on this offensive line. I mean, let's just face it, the tackles just look downright horrible this week. I mean, no, I don't even want to put it on a tackle. I'm going to say the entire offensive line still looked absolutely horrible this week. They really could not give Le'Veon Bell any room to run. I mean, granted, I think he missed a couple holes, but I mean, there was really no room. They had to resort to, probably throwing the most screen passes in one game to substitute as their run game. But I mean, holdings, false starts, they were all on Beachum and Gilbert, and they can't do that against the Ravens because we won't win. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how that Steelers defense matches up against Ray Rice in that offense, because let's be honest, the Ravens have looked bad this year.
Yeah.
They look like they really missed Ed Reed and Ray Lewis on offense. But
defense.
Whoa. Defense.
I mean, they have provided a lot of points for them.
Right. But more
Ray Lewis and Ed Reed just doing what they do.
Yeah. But I mean, more importantly though, I think they're missing Bolden on offense.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he was Joe Flacco's security blanket.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Flacco and Torrey Smith aren't really connecting for the deep ball this year. Ray Rice can't run the ball to save his life this year. I mean, they just won a couple more games than the Steelers, but I mean, in terms of talent on each side, I mean, they're pretty deadlocked right now.
With these two teams, it's going to come down to the defense. I mean, yeah, the offense has to step up and make a couple of plays, but for the most part, it's the defense. I mean, last year when the Steelers did beat Baltimore, it was with Charlie Batch at quarterback, but the defense stepped up, made the plays they had to. Batch took them on a last-minute drive, was able to get them the win. But, I mean, for the most part, it's defense. I mean, you think of the game a couple of years ago. I mean, Troy Polamalu smacks the ball out of Joe Flacco's hand, takes it back. They win 13-9. If the Steelers want to be contenders,
they have a playoff team.
Contending for a playoff spot. I mean, not a Super Bowl contender. I mean, a contender for a playoff team. You have to win this week. You win this week. You put the Ravens at 3-4. You're deadlocked in the loss column with them. Say the Browns lose to the Packers. You're deadlocked in the loss column with them. You're sitting not so terrible for a team that started 2-4. And like Cody and I were talking about earlier.
2-4. Yeah, you said
Or
2-4. That's the one to be 2-4.
1-4, and then
doing what they do.
Possibly 2-4. But like Cody and I were talking about earlier, no one in the AFC is really going to step up and take that last playoff spot. I mean, you think Miami,
the Jets,
the
Titans, Chargers.
I mean, you think the Patriots are going to win the East. The Colts are most likely going to win the South. With the West, it's going to be the Broncos and the Chiefs. One of them will win the wild card. One of them will win the division. So, I mean, that last wild card spot is wide open, and no one in the AFC has impressed me enough to say, wow, that's a team that's really going to go out there and take that last wild card spot.
No, and I think we're seeing now that the Ravens made a huge mistake paying Joe Flacco all that money.
The interception machine himself.
I mean, not that he didn't do well last year in the playoffs and towards the end of last season, but they rode the defense to that Super Bowl. And, I mean, if I'm him, I'm not complaining because all that guaranteed money he got, but he's really not playing like $100 million quarterback, $120 million quarterback.
No, I'm willing to bet, say Ray Lewis is not a crazy attention whore and doesn't announce his retirement right before the playoffs so he can go on his little farewell tour. I don't think that Baltimore team went. I think they might lose to Indianapolis in that wild card game. It was pure emotion that their leader, this was his last go around, and they did that all for Ray Lewis.
Well, let's be honest. They're one defensive mistake away from not even winning that game in Denver.
Yeah,
They're one defensive breakdown.
How you don't do prevent defense? Though,
I mean,
but whatever. Yeah.
They're one bad jump by a cornerback away from not winning that game. in
Broncos
Denver.
defense doing what they do.
Yeah, doing what they do.
I mean, and then it took a goal line stand in the Super Bowl to win it.
A
so-
game that they almost blew.
Exactly.
So
The
Not impressed.
NFL and Roger Goodell purposely planted that power outage because they hate T-Sizzle.
I hate T-Sizzle. Let's move on.
No, wait.
Ian's got
wait.
something. Ian's got
I
something.
want to hear what you guys think. I want to hear who's winning this game Sunday. I want to know
Pittsburgh.
who's winning this game Sunday and by what score.
I'm gonna say Pittsburgh 24, Ravens 14.
I'm going to say both offenses struggle like they have all year. I'm going to say 9-3, a field goal fest. The Steelers win.
If that's right, I'll do the next podcast shirtless. If that's the final,
For all the ladies out there,
that's
a.k.a. our moms.
That's right. That's right. And I'm willing to bet Ian will go with this on me. He will do the next podcast shirtless.
Oh, most
For the
definitely.
sake of humanity, I will keep a shirt on.
yes.
I will do it pantless, but you wouldn't
I
be able
mean-
to tell.
But to predict a 9-3 game in the NFL, that is just.
Hey, the Browns did a 6-3 game a couple years ago, so
The worst game in NFL history was when one of the Hurricanes was still in Miami in 2004. What was that? 3-0 the Steelers won in the mud, I think.
That was.
Oh
a bad
my! What a horrible game.
Okay, let's.
But you're not even gonna ask me what I think.
What
of
do you
this game?
think? What do you think of this game, Ian?
What do you got?
I expect to see Dallas Clark kind of take over that Anquan Bolden kind of role as Flacco's security blanket. He kind of showed flashes of it last week against Green Bay. I don't know if it's going to be good enough for the Ravens to walk out of there with a win, but I expect to see that kind of start to develop a little bit. I think the Steelers win this game. 17-14 game.
Good
I
game.
think it'll be a low scoring, good, hard hitting
And-
football game.
And you know the Steelers are going to be ready because they banned the games in the locker room. They're all about the film. I mean, there's no ping pong, there's no foursquare, there's no jump rope. It's
Yeah.
all film.
Do you think that approach works, though? I mean,
No.
I'm not. I mean, in the
No.
long run. I mean, for a couple weeks, it's it's all business. It's all business.
No.
But I mean,
No, I don't.
I think it does. I think it gets your guys laser focused, and I think it gives them kind of an incentive thing. You know, you get your shit together, and then you can get your stuff back. Then you can get your privileges back. Then you can get your.
I just have a hard
for
time
a grown
believing.
man looking another. And Mike Tomlin's not much older than most of his players. For him to look other grown men in the eye and say, "You can't play your games until you play your game better," it's a respect factor for me, and I don't know.
I just don't. I don't think it made a difference for you guys. Not that you're claiming this, but to say, for the sake of argument, that the only reason the Steelers beat the Jets is because they stopped playing games in the locker room.
Well, that's not it.
Well,
But I'm just saying it.
I don't think it. I mean, I just don't think it played a factor, and people on like the media and the Pittsburgh media, I think they just blew it out of proportion.
But
Pittsburgh
I
media
think-
blows everything out of
Well,
proportion.
right.
but-
When you have
But
Ron
I-
Cook in New York, Vinny.
I mean, I think though, if you need something like that, an incentive, or you can't focus on anything else
Why you
to
playing
get
the game?
yourself up for the game, that's not the kind of person you want on your team
No,
anyway.
no.
All right, let's move on to a matchup of a couple 4-2 teams. The first place Bengals, not Browns. First place Bengals going into the Detroit
Detroit Lions.
First place Detroit Lions.
That's right.
That'd be an interesting matchup. I don't think though that the Bengals can hang with the Lions offensively. I mean, they just have so many weapons. Reggie Bush has really been that X factor that he really takes the pressure off Calvin Johnson and the other receivers because he's just so fast. He's so good, and Matthew Stafford has really gotten good chemistry with him this year. So I think the Lions will win this one. It'll be a close one. I think AJ Green keeps the Bengals in the game, but I like the Lions 27, 27-17 in this one.
I think the Lions are out to prove this year that 2 years ago was not a fluke, and so far they've really, I mean, in my mind, they've shown it.
Mhm.
I mean, they beat a decent Browns team last week, and I mean that offense, you just don't know who's gonna step up.
Who do you key on?
Right, because I mean Calvin Johnson didn't really have that great of a game, but not even their starting tight end, but the backup tight end caught 3 touchdown passes. I mean, you have Broyles, who
And had one of the worst touchdown celebration dances in the
he's a
history
rookie.
of
He's
football.
2 of the worst.
I just
touchdowns.
saw one.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure one of the times he dunked it. It
yeah,
was
he
pretty
did
nice.
the win. That was the one I'll give him credit
Yeah,
for.
he
The
did.
win
The other
was
one
good.
he did like a whole bunch of this kind of movement.
Yeah.
And then the other one he did the bring it.
He was
it was
bringing
bad.
it around town. But I mean, and then you have Broyles, who's starting to emerge as a really good second receiver. I mean, and then you still have Reggie Bush in the backfield. You have Bell, who's Bush's backup, who's played well. I mean, and let's not forget to talk about Detroit's defense here, because they're good.
Oh yeah.
Their front seven, I mean, you may not know their names besides Sue and maybe Nick Farley, but I mean, they get after the quarterback and they force turnovers.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's an interesting matchup to me. I think it's exciting to see the Lions kind of get back into this thing. A couple years ago, they were really, really, really competitive. Last year was kind of a step back, and it's been fun to watch this team with that whole new dynamic offense. But speaking of dynamic offenses, how about the dynamic that Cincinnati's Giovanni Bernard brings to that team?
Mm-hmm.
He has really, really impressed me. He doesn't put up great numbers,
Not yet.
but he makes big plays in big situations. He's always there. He's always in the right position. He doesn't turn over the football. He's been a really, really good player for that Cincinnati team, and I expect him to really play well on Sunday against Detroit. I think it'll be a very, very good game, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Bengals win this game. I would not be surprised if Cincinnati beats Detroit, and I really think they're going to. I think I love what the Detroit offense brings. I love Detroit's defense. I just think Cincinnati got a big win last week against Buffalo for their confidence. Their offense finally put a little bit more together than they had in the past couple of weeks. And I think that's something that you will see them start to keep building on. I like Cincinnati in this game. I think they're going to go out, and I think it's going to be a 35-31 win.
For the Bengals, though, it just depends what Andy Dalton is going to show up. He's not as bad as Brandon Weeden. So, I mean, when I compare the two, I want you to know, I mean, it's on different levels. But, I mean, is he holding this team back? I mean, it just feels like every year they're going to make the playoffs with him, and they're going to lose the first game. I mean, it's happened 2 years in a row. Not this year. Not this year. But I mean, it just feels like I just don't have the confidence in him that he will go out and win you a game. I feel like his biggest attribute is I can throw it to a really tall and good AJ Green, and he's going to make me look good. I have not been impressed with him. I just feel like he's holding them back. But on a playoff level. I mean, I think they're going to be a playoff team with him, but I just feel like he's not going to step up in the big games.
But again, has he had a guy like Giovanni Bernard?
No.
Because Giovanni Bernard is a huge part of this offense. And I loved that pick when they took him because I knew how dynamic of a playmaker he was going to be for this team. He's not the biggest guy. He's not going to run guys over, but he gets in position. He makes key plays, and I think that is going to be something that they need to finally get them over the hump. Because Lord knows Ben Jarvis Green Ellis is not a threat to catch a football out of the backfield, but Giovanni Bernard is. Giovanni Bernard is another weapon in that passing attack that you have to defend. Not to mention he's quick as hell. And if they hand him the ball and he gets outside, he's going to get 15 yards easily. So I think Giovanni Bernard is a big piece to get them over the hump. I don't think Andy Dalton's been holding them back. I just think they were one weapon away from really getting past that big hump.
Uh, I don't want to sound like I'm an anti-Bengals fan just because I'm a Steelers fan by any means, but I've really been disappointed in that Bengal offense this year. I mean, when you have AJ Green and has anybody seen Mohamed Sanu this year?
No.
He was such a dynamic playmaker from a versatile player, and he hasn't shown up really.
How about the tight end combo, Tyler Eifert and Jermaine Gresham?
I mean short of a couple big catches from Eifert every now and then, nothing really there. I mean, the only bright spot is you're right, and is Giovanni Bernard. I mean, Dalton. I think he's honestly regressing. He was so good his rookie year, and he was getting a little better his sophomore year, and he just really now this year and the next year is really when you're gonna find out if you have the next Ben Roethlisberger. Not even. I'll put it this way: these next couple of years, you're gonna find out is he an elite level quarterback or is he the Matt Schaubs of the league? That's really where he's at.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes it takes quarterbacks a while. I mean, Joe Flacco. If you would have asked me before last season if he would have ever won a Super Bowl, I would have laughed at you and said, no. I mean, he doesn't have that clutch. I mean, I know clutchness. Some people believe in it, some people don't. But it's a big part in sports, in my opinion. And I would have told you that he didn't have that clutch factor, and then he goes out and wins the Super Bowl. But I mean, I think you're right. I mean, it's really going to show in these next couple of years. I mean, the pressure's on the Bengals. They have to take this division run. I mean, who's going to stop them? No one's stopping them at this point. So I mean, it'll be really interesting to see what we see out of Dalton in the next and this season, the next couple of years. Let's move on to a premier matchup of quarterbacks. One who held the Colts' future, or one who's holding the Colts' future, one who's holding their past. Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck as the Broncos go in to visit the Colts. What do you expect to see this week?
I expect to see a lot of emotion. Peyton Manning making his return to Indianapolis, and I expect to see a very, very warm reception from the fans in Indianapolis for that. I expect to see a very, very good football team. I'm excited to see what Von Miller brings to that Broncos defense with his return. He's a whole other pass threat to worry about for that Indianapolis offensive line, who really didn't play that great on Monday night against San Diego.
Really rough game.
Really bad game for the Colts all around. Mm-hmm. It wasn't that the Chargers were that much better. It's just the Colts didn't play that well. I think this is a big game for Indianapolis. It's a big game for Denver too. I mean, this is a team that a lot of people expect to be a playoff threat. One of the teams that might prevent the Broncos from getting to a Super Bowl. A lot of people think, and this is going to be a huge test for them. I expect the Broncos to win this game, but I think it'll be a really, really good game. I think it'll be a fun game to watch. I like the Broncos in this 38-35.
Yeah, it was a really classy move by the Colts owner Jim Irsay to honor Peyton Manning this week. I mean, so much was made of by a couple particular people in the media was made of, oh, Jim Irsay hates Peyton Manning and he's cutting him and he wants to be the superstar in Indianapolis. That's not the case. I mean, when you have the opportunity to have Peyton Manning be your quarterback for 13 years and then turn around and you draft Andrew Luck and you're going to have him for the next 10, 15 years, you have to take that opportunity. There's no animosity between Peyton Manning and the Colts. I mean, like you said, it's going to be a really warm reception. He's one of the classiest guys in sports. But it will be a really good game. I mean, two AFC title contenders. The Broncos, I mean, the pressure's on the Broncos to keep winning as so long as the Chiefs keep winning. I mean, it's who's going to lose first in that division until they play each other and one of them has to lose. But I mean, it's
Ties. We still have ties.
14-0-2, the co-champions. But no, I mean, it'll be really interesting to see. Like you, I like the Broncos in this game. I think it'll be a little bit lower scoring than you think, though. I think it'll be 24-17. The Broncos will win.
Well, it's going to be interesting, I think, to see how Peyton Manning responds. He really is. Peyton Manning, he has his routines, what he goes through every week, and he doesn't want to break that. But when he sees Reggie Wayne on that field, when he's warming up, and he sees the guys he's played with for 13 years, I mean, he just, I don't. It'll be interesting to see how he handles it. Is he going to be business as usual when one of your best friends is just sitting right there? I mean, I don't think it's going to be that big of a distraction for him because he is Peyton Manning. But I mean, maybe the first couple of drives, he just, I don't know.
Do you think he tries to throw it to Reggie Wayne on the sideline for old time's sake?
I mean, they might warm up together just for old time's sake. But I mean, in the bigger picture of things, this really is a huge matchup. The Broncos defense, these last couple weeks have, I mean, if there's no panic alarms going off in that locker room, there's something wrong, because when you allow that many points to Tony Romo and the Dallas Cowboys, I mean, that's not the worst thing, because they have a lot of talent on the team.
Mm-hmm.
But when you allow Jacksonville to start scoring on you in multiple times,
it's not so good.
No, they were in control of that game the entire game.
Yeah, there was no threat of them
but
losing that game. But
they didn't play well.
No.
I mean, and you look at the Colts defense, they really haven't played all that well this year. So I think I'm more with Ian on this one. It's going to be a high scoring game. I mean, as we say this, it'll probably be 14-7 or something. But I think I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I think I'm going to take the Colts in this one. I think you're going to see Andrew Luck with the game-winning drive, and I'm going to say 38-35. New England Colts with Andrew Luck.
New England Colts.
The New England Colts.
The Indianapolis Colts doing what they do. I think you'll see the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, unless New England moves there, I don't know. But I think you'll see Andrew Luck in the fourth quarter with 2 minutes left, drive his team down the field and get that touchdown, and that's going to be the difference.
Yeah, I mean, for the Colts, I mean, everyone's looking at them as a Super Bowl contender, and then they go out last week and just lay a really, really big goose egg against the Chargers. So, I mean, if they want to be taken seriously, they really need to compete in this game, if not pull off the upset.
Yeah, but I think the Chargers, people are they've played better this year.
The Chargers have played a lot better.
They're a couple mistakes away from being right there with the
Phil,
Broncos.
Let's be honest, they should have beat Houston in week 1.
Yes.
They should have beat Houston in week 1.
Phillip Rivers.
They should have beat Oakland a couple weeks ago.
Phillip Rivers has really played a lot better, and Ryan Matthews.
And you haven't seen him have any mental breakdowns on the sideline. I mean, he's really one of the most hateable guys in sports, but I mean,
besides Jay Cutler,
Jay Cutler. Yeah, I hate Jay Cutler. All right, let's move on to the NHL. The Penguins are taking on the Edmonton Oilers. Let's see, let's get an update on that game. 2-2 at the end of the second. Just kind of rolling through. I mean, they had a not so good loss to Florida, but it was Zach Koff's first start in goal. They rebound with a win against Tampa Bay. I mean, they're tied with the Oilers tonight. I mean, and they're missing a good bit of their talent and still playing well. I mean, James Neal was placed on IR this morning. No, I mean, right now Malkin's playing with, and he's not to take anything away from him, but UC Jokinen on his line, Chuck Tobasol on his line. Not to take anything away from those two, but you're normally used to seeing like James Neal, really high talented players up there with Malkin. I mean, he makes other players look better, but I mean, really, the biggest thing for them right now is to keep taking care of business, but they really need to focus on getting healthy, getting James Neal back, getting Chris Letang back.
Yeah, no, we said it before, and I'll say it again. This Penguins team, it's all about the playoffs. We know they're going to be there, so they do. They don't need to rush Letang back, Neal. Let them get healthy, and then let's go from there. But I mean, if I'm the Penguins, I gotta ride Sidney Crosby because he is on fire to start this year. He had a hat trick the other night against Tampa. He has an assist in this game already. I mean, he's been. I mean, we talked last podcast about Ovechkin playing really well and playing out of his mind. I think Crosby's been playing out of his mind this year.
Well, Evgeny Malkin scored a power play goal a couple minutes ago. It's 3-2 Penguins.
I think I'm a little more concerned about what I saw on that Florida road trip than I think you two are, and not because of the lack of offense, but because of the lack of defense at the back end. The Florida loss, yes, it was a rookie goaltender's first starting net. But how do you give the Florida Panthers the opportunity to even score that many goals on you? Defensively has been the weak spot of this team for a number of years.
It looks like it's going to continue.
And it looks like that trend's continuing thus far. You've got to improve at the back end. Games are won at the back end. You can't just go out there and expect to outscore everybody. I don't care if you do have Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin on your roster. You've got to control the play at the back end, and the Penguins have not been able to do that. I'm a little concerned about that. I'm happy with how well they played offensively. I'm happy with how well the special teams has looked. The back end has got to get better for this team, or you're going to see a repeat of what happened in the playoffs last year. You gotta get better at that back end.
Absolutely. I mean, last year in the playoffs, it was the Bruins shutting them down in 4 games. I mean, that all you need is one hot goaltender to take away your entire offense, and then it gets put on your defense.
Mm-hmm.
And they've continued to not look very good to start this year, and it's really interesting. I mean, so many people laud Ray Shearer as a great general manager, and deservingly so. But I mean, he has not emphasized defense at all.
Well, has Bilesma really emphasized defense at all? It's all about being the aggressor. It's all about getting the puck up. There's no help in the back. They get themselves in odd man situations. They get themselves out of position on occasion after occasion after occasion. And that's what gets them into this kind of trouble. Tonight they're playing a really, really young, really, really talented Edmonton team that I think is going to be a playoff team out in the West. I really do, and I really wouldn't be surprised to see them maybe win their division this year. But back end's got to get better. They got to get back, and you got to get help from the forwards in the defensive zone. Forwards have got to play defense. Defensemen have got to play defense. And when Chris Letang gets back, let's see if he plays defense. Or is he going to decide to try and be a forward again like he did all last year? Let's see what happens in a couple months.
Yeah, and I don't know how much this has to do with it, but with Bilesma and the high-scoring offense, I mean, is he kind of playing to win the games, or is he kind of playing to please the fan base? I'm just throwing it out there because, I mean, I don't mind seeing a 2-1, 1-0 hockey game. But, I mean, would the majority of casual fans continue to go to the game if they were like that? Or do they want to see 5-1, 4-2, 6-3?
I mean, a coaching style is usually with someone, I mean, from their playing days all the way up through the coaching ranks. I mean, was Bilesma in 2009 a fluke? He's a good hockey coach, but is he the kind of hockey coach that's going to win you a cup? Or was 2009 kind of a fluke? It was nice to get Therrien out of there. He wasn't really a player's coach. It was nice to have all that talent play with a guy like Bilesma.
And are the Penguins and Lemieux wasting the golden years of Malkin and Crosby? I mean, to this point, have you said their time in the league has been a failure, success? I mean, one Stanley Cup, but I mean, look at they're the best two players in the world.
When you have the best two players on the world on your team, I think only one championship.
I think that's a disappointment.
I think it is a disappointment. I mean, especially last year. I mean, everyone talked about cup or bust, cup or bust. Oh, we added Iginla. We added.
Come on, baby, you can do it.
No, I can't. Douglas Murray. We added all these people, and nope, we lost, and we salvaged we mortgaged some of our future away. I mean, do they need to focus on getting younger?
They need to focus on getting better at the back end. It starts with defense in this league. It all starts with defense.
How impressed have you been with rookie defenseman Ali Mata?
He's played really well. I mean,
hopefully though, hopefully what we see this year is Biles must start to trust the younger players because he plays them not a decent amount. He plays them during the regular season, but you rarely see them in the postseason, and maybe that's what the Penguins need. I don't know. You could debate this all night.
Yeah, we could go about this all night.
But one quick thing that I've seen in a couple of the Pens games I've watched this year, though they haven't really played anybody that they truly 100% just absolutely just F them. I hate them. But the retaliation penalties here, I haven't seen them that much this year. And like I said, they haven't played the Flyers, the Bruins, the teams they just want to right there.
Yeah.
But I mean, hopefully this is a sign that this team's growing up and they're not taking those stupid penalties, which get them in trouble.
We'll find out in a couple of weeks when the Flyers come to town. We'll find out in a couple of weeks when the Caps come to town.
Yes.
All right, let's stay on a Metro Division team. Let's move to the Blue Jackets.
Metro.
The Metro Division. What a horrible name. I don't like saying that, Metro Division. That's not good. The Blue Jackets, I mean, last year, just a point away, they tied the Wild and
they
lost
tied
the
the Wild and lost the tiebreaker.
I mean, just a tiebreaker away from being a playoff team. Basically on the shoulders of Bobrovsky. What have you seen so far earlier in the season from them?
Good, not great. They've gotten off to a much better start than they did a year ago. Like you said, when they were just a tiebreaker away from getting.
And it was all in the second half.
Yeah, it was all in the second. It was a huge second half of the season push. After the All-Star break, that team just turned it on. And I'd like to see Marian Gaborik step it up a little bit more for that team. He's kind of been quiet. Same with R.J. Umberger and guys like that. But again, this is a team that I think this is a playoff team. I firmly believe this is a playoff team. I firmly believe this is a team that could go well into the playoffs. There's a lot of young talent on that roster, along with guys that have been there. Jack Johnson, Marian Gaborik, R.J. Umberger, Sergei Bobrovsky. This is a really, really fun team to watch. This is a fun team. And it's good to see finally one of Gary Bettman's pets work. You know, when you talk about the Phoenix Coyotes, who have actually been very, very impressive this year, I'll give them that. They've played really well. They've gotten a couple of really big wins. When you talk about the Florida Panthers, you talk about the Tampa Bay Lightning, you talk about the Atlanta Thrashers.
The who?
Let's bring it up to the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, let's take that to the Winnipeg Jets. But the Atlanta Thrashers, the Dallas Stars, who are the only one of that whole little pot there that has actually won anything. Yeah. And that's basically because of Mike Modano and one fluke goal by Brett Hull that probably should have never happened. But still, this is a fun team to watch, and it's good for hockey to get a relatively unknown team like this in a small market really playing well. And I think this is a force to be reckoned with with this team, not only for this year, but for the next couple of years. This is going to be a really consistent, really good hockey team.
Yeah, and look, it's early in the season.
Yes,
we're only on the 5th game. I mean, we play 81. I mean, there's a lot of hockey left to be played. And we like they said, we do know the Jackets. They have talent on the team. They played well towards the end of the last year, but this year, I mean, the first game of the season they lose 4-3 to Calgary.
Yeah.
But then they beat the Islanders in a shootout.
Yeah.
And then they go on. They beat a bad Buffalo team 4-1.
Yep.
Then they lose 3-1 to Boston, and they're currently trailing 2-1 to the Red Wings.
Yeah.
So, though this isn't a team I would take lightly if I'm the Penguins or anybody else in that the Metro Division, right now they've seen the beat the bad teams and keep it close with the good teams, but come up short. Like I said, it's early. And I mean, I wouldn't want to.
I mean, it's not like the Islanders are a bad team.
No,
that was a big win for that team on the Islanders opening night, home opener coming off of a playoff berth. That's a good team, especially with how well Michael Grabner has played for that team. Don't sleep on him. He's a really, really good player. And he adds a whole other dimension to that offense, setting up John Tavares.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys are right, though. I mean, they have all this talent. I think you'll see them in the playoffs, but they're kind of been so-so this year so far, which, I mean, like, we're only 4 games into the season.
Definitely a better start than they had a year ago.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, they are one of those young teams, fun to watch, but not so much this year. I mean, not that they couldn't ride Bobrovsky to a cup this year, but I mean, the next couple years is where you're really going to see them start to peak. And I mean, what a joke for the Flyers to give up on Bobrovsky. Let's move on to the Flyers.
LOL Flyers.
I mean, wow.
I mean,
from losing the cup just down to nothing. I mean, they are probably the worst team in hockey.
With some decent talent on that team.
And I mean, they haven't lost any major players. I mean, except Bobrovsky, who they traded. How do you trade away a young goaltender with so much promise? The Flyers
for Steve Mason.
Oh, that's a game changer.
Who played well for Columbus, but he wasn't really all that fantastic.
It's just. I don't understand. Maybe it's bad coaching, but Laviolette's gone now, and I didn't really see him as a bad coach. But I mean, Giroux hasn't stepped up since the playoff series against the Penguins.
Where's Vinny Lecavalier for this team?
Simmons. That was a big signing. Was Vincent Lecavalier?
Let's think about this. This team had the same problem as the Penguins during the offseason. We suck at the back end. So what are we gonna do? Let's go sign forwards and do nothing to improve.
And it's not paying off because they've yet to win a game this year.
Yeah.
They have 3 points. They just lost tonight to the Canucks. I mean, not that I'm gonna say they're gonna go 0-81, but I just don't see them. They might get the best of Pittsburgh a couple times this year because of that rivalry. But I don't see them posing a threat to the Penguins this year, or anybody really, for that matter.
No, it's really interesting to see, though. I mean, how a team can fall off so fast. I mean
they're just a couple years out removed from beating the Penguins in the playoffs.
I mean, and you had one of
they're a couple years removed from being an overtime goal away from forcing a Game 7 in a Stanley Cup final.
Yeah. I mean, you had one of their beat writers. It was during that Penguins series where they just really got under the Penguins' skin. The Penguins took it to 6 games, but I mean, in the end, the Flyers won. But you had one of their beat writers tweet out, "Oh, I think that we just witnessed Crosby pass the torch to Giroux as the best player in the world." I mean, since that moment, has Giroux even stepped on the ice? I mean, I have not seen him do anything productive. And I mean, and he's supposed to be really good, and he has the talent to be really good. But I mean, you have to lead your team. I think that's the difference between the Penguins and the Flyers, is they're both really bad defensively. Kind of shaky in goal for both teams. I mean, Marc-Andre Fleury can go out there and shut a team out, but I mean, other nights he's going to give up 7 goals off just really bad plays. But I mean, I think that's the difference between the Penguins and the Flyers, is the Penguins have more talent at the forwards. They have Crosby. They have Malkin. who can carry you to a lot of wins.
That beat writer saying that makes me so mad that I don't even want to sit here and
Um,
talk about that team anymore.
Okay.
I think I'm actually just gonna go cool my jets for a little bit. I'll be right back. You guys just keep this going for a minute. I'll be right back. That's just ridiculous.
Hey,
Absolutely ridiculous.
Hey, let's change the subject here.
Ridiculous.
I know. Let's talk about not that I'm not a loyal Pens fan, but this might be my second favorite team this year in the NHL this year, and that's the Colorado Avalanche.
Oh,
They're kicking ass and taking
Yes.
names to say. I mean, they put a beat down on Washington. They shut out Boston. They had that big opening win against Anaheim. I mean, they haven't lost this year, and they look impressive.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's what you see. I mean, a team's really bad for a long time. They draft, they stockpile. I mean, you're really seeing that pay off for them. I mean, McKinnon, he's been nothing
McKinnon.
short of amazing this year.
McKinnon, Landeskog,
It's been really fun to watch them.
especially with Matt Duchene, who's been really good for a couple of years and just hasn't had anybody around him to really help him out. Now he's got that, and once again, for the second week in a row, I'm going to say this: I love Patrick Waugh as the head coach of that team.
How can you not?
He is unbelievable with how well he's done with that team. Just that is the most fun team to watch in hockey right now. No doubt, not even close. They keep it. There's so much energy with that team. There's that young energy, that young passion, and Patrick Waugh has lit such a fire under this team, that competitive edge that they hadn't had in a number of years, to finally make this kind of sleeping giant that was brewing out there explode into what you've seen in the early parts of this season.
Absolutely, and I fully expect them to make it playoffs and probably make some noise in the playoffs at this point. I mean, again, small sample size, but I like it.
Oh, it's fun.
And if you're a hockey fan, or just a casual fan, you have to check this team out.
It's fun.
And
They're in Pittsburgh in a couple weeks.
yeah, I mean they're coming to Pittsburgh, and that's probably going to be my first Penguins game of the year
it'll
because
be.
that's just going to. I might even go see if they're in Columbus.
Oh, they'll
at
be
any
in
point,
Columbus.
because they're in the Pens division. I might go see them in Columbus because they're just wow.
They're fun. It's
And
exciting.
that'd be a great matchup of two young teams.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Let's wrap this podcast up though.
Yeah.
And it's time for the weekly bold predictions. Which let's review last week's because I'm pretty sure
Oh, here we
these
go.
two laughed at me when I said Texas over Oklahoma,
Oh, jeez.
and Texas came out and won.
I haven't heard anything about that game.
No,
You heard anything
I
about
haven't
that?
heard
I
anything
haven't
about
heard
that
anything about that game.
You really sure that happened? I mean, I hadn't heard
I mean,
anything
I
about
can't
it.
take much credit because Bob Stoops and his team didn't show up for a big game surprise, but
What, Notre Dame wasn't a big game this year?
yeah.
All right, let's start with the Wonder Kid himself.
No, I'm saving mine because it's so outrageous and ridiculously bold. It can't go first.
Oh,
Okay.
boy.
Ian, you want to lead off?
Oh, jeez. Bold prediction. Oh. Do the Jaguars play this week?
They do.
They do. Who do they play?
San Diego.
The Jacksonville Jaguars pick up their first win of the year this week against the San Diego Chargers.
I think that was Cody's bold prediction.
That was
That's why
my
he's upset.
absolutely bold prediction because Jacksonville, and Ian and I will share this one here.
Yeah.
Jacksonville, they looked like an actual NFL team the other day. I mean, Maurice Jones-Drew had a decent game. He scored a touchdown. So Ian and I are sharing our bold prediction this week. The 0-6 Jaguars are going to beat a fairly decent San Diego Chargers team at Jacksonville. And if you want to add to it, Tim Tebow will start this week and throw the game-winning touchdown. that was a joke.
Absolutely, people.
That was a
Way
joke.
too bold.
Okay, for me, my bold prediction, Michigan coming off heartbreaking loss. And
Great
what was it?
game.
A fan
Triple or quadruple?
quadruple.
Quadruple overtime.
Awesome.
Penn State, I mean, you can't say enough about Penn State, but I mean, Michigan coming off that loss, they have Indiana at home. And Indiana has been really, really good offensively this year. And Michigan has not looked good against anyone. So I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say that Indiana pulls off the upset in the big house. And Michigan falls to 5-2. And, man, Michigan sucks.
Michigan sucks.
I don't like that bold prediction. Just gonna throw it out there. If Ohio State wants a shot at the national title,
I don't like
I'm
it.
just saying. I'm not rooting directly for Michigan because I think I'd be disowned. But they better get their shit together because Ohio State needs them to be ranked for us to look good this year. But I like your prediction, Byron.
Okay, let's do our other end of the podcast feature. What are you looking forward to most this week or weekend in sports?
I'm not looking forward to the ranked matchups in college football. UCLA, Stanford, Florida State, Clemson. A lot of fun football games to watch this week. It'll be interesting to see who really carries the torch and who steps up to the plate in big time games. It's finally starting to get to the big time games now in college football. So let's see who carries the ball, who gets the big wins early on.
All right. For me, the thing I'm most excited about this week is Ravens at Steelers. I mean, just always, those are always the best games. I mean, it doesn't matter how good or bad they are. They're really hard-fought games. And I really want to see if Pittsburgh can just step up, beat the Ravens, and not establish themselves. But, I mean, just a winning streak would be nice. 2 in a row. I mean, let's win 4 in a row to cancel out 4 losses in a row.
There we go. I think what I'm most looking forward to, I have a couple things. Something we don't usually talk about on here a whole lot, but I'm looking forward to some high school football. I mean, there's nothing better, I think, than Friday and Saturday nights going to a couple games, watching some kids just really give it their all out on the field. I think might go to a high school football game or two. And also, I'm looking forward to playing golf on Sundays because it's awesome.
The thing I'm looking forward to most this weekend, non-sports related, is Boo at the Zoo Saturday. Ogilvy Park. Be there or be square. Alright, thanks for watching, everyone.
I'm Cody.
I'm BJ.
I mean,
Who are you?